So I wanted to create this video about navigating tumultuous times because, in many senses, and for many companies out there right now, especially small business owners, as they go through this kind of transition period in the marketplace, you're going to experience some unexpected turns, and that could be a decrease in sales. That could be a loss of some of your key contacts in the contracting offices for the ones that you're working with, especially if you're a government contractor. And my company is a government contracting company. In a large way, we work with municipalities and the United States federal government in different capacities, providing our services to them, and so it impacts us. And I want to share with you some of the strategies that we use for getting through ups and down times. And I think maybe it's a little bit more meaningful as we kind of transcend one of these times together. To remind you of a few key things that you need to remember about your company, about your team, because if you don't pay attention, you can really injure yourself and your company more by the things that you can do that you're not doing, more than what the environment is doing in that you're in that's impacting your company. And I think that's very important. Then something that I hope to help provide some perspective and maybe a few tools in your tool belt, and giving you confidence to go through tumultuous waters. My name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations, and I have both the family side and I have the company side in my life that we deal with as we work through these challenges. And so on the family side, my wife and I have been married for going on 16 years this year, and we have 8 children. We started our family and decided early on that we wanted to have a lot of children, and we also decided that we wanted to be business owners somewhere along the way in those first few years. And so we took the skills that we had and the knowledge that we had in the areas of business, finance, and linguistics, and we combined them into a business and started working in that. And over the years, grew it, and then became a government contractor and started contracting for different states and school districts, and have become one of the fastest growing companies in the world of translation and interpretation and digital services and human resource allocation. So in that, that's just to give you a little bit of background who I am and what we do. So as we navigate through times like this, and there have been multiple times like this through my tenure in the leadership of our organization, and I wanted to just tell you at least how I dealt with it and what took me from there to being successful through those times and brought me to here. The first thing I want to share with you is that you have to deal with the reality of the situation. Okay, this is whenever politics or negative events impact your organization or your environment, it doesn't help to put your head in the sand. It doesn't help to tune everything out, and it doesn't help to act like it doesn't exist. So acknowledge reality. And this is something in a big way that the book Good to Great helped me with, when it talks about the Stockdale paradox, where Admiral Stockdale, who was shot down over Vietnam, he was put in a prison camp, and I think he was there for more than 7 years before he was finally released, tortured countless times, and they thought he might not make it. But he said his point when leaders asked him, "Well, who made it out of the concentration camp?" And he said, "Well, that's like, was it the optimistic people, the people who were optimists?" He's like, "No, those people died of a broken heart. Like, those people, they kind of buried their heads in the sand. They say we'd be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and go, and then Easter would come and go, and then Thanksgiving would come and go, and they would still be there." And he's like, "Those people would die because inside they were broken so badly that they couldn't make it." He said the people who made it were the people who addressed reality and maintained hope and faith that in the end that this would cause one of the defining moments of their lives. And he says that's what I did. He said, I addressed the reality of the situation. Yeah, it sucks. I'm in a freaking concentration camp, and this is kind of bad. Actually, it's terrible, but that's where I find myself, and I'm going to manage my current reality, control my own self, and I'm going to create the best reality that I can, and the best outcomes that I can, given what I'm currently in. And I think that skill in leadership is one that you have to create and maintain. This is not a natural thing for all of us as leaders. It's not something that just happens. Now, some of us have more of an inclination to be charismatic and to be persuasive, but something that completely uh, addresses a reality that can be very fearful, and then addresses that reality with an ability to receive the facts without getting utterly and overly depressed to where you cannot act, is something that you have to develop. And so address the facts of reality while maintaining the hope that you will, and faith more than anything else, that you will in the end, that it could become one of the defining moments of your business or your life or your relationships or whatever the challenge it is that you are facing. And so that is the first thing. You have to address the reality and accept the reality and look at everything that you have, that you can, like, take stock of where you are, what you have, and where you find yourself right now. Maybe it wasn't unexpected. It wasn't you didn't expect just to end up here at this moment, but you are here, and now you have to deal with the reality. And then once we get there, one of the tendencies for leaders is to go to strict problem solving mode, focus on the problem, and work through it. When it's a very dangerous situation, especially if you have a team or if you have a family that's in the situation, and and people are a little bit afraid. As a leader, what you have to do is focus on the solution, not on the problem. You have to acknowledge reality and the problem that exists. Acknowledge it. Take a few minutes to mourn it. Take a couple hours to be sad about it if you have to. You can waller in the mud if you have to a little bit, but then you have to move on and let your faith that in the end that you will overcome this, that you will work through it, and that you will live beyond it. Let that carry you forward. So, step number one, address reality with the faith that we are going to prevail in the end. Step number two is make sure, as you're leading through this for your team and for your family, that you are constantly talking about the solution. What the solution is, what the future is going to look like. I'm not talking about vain vision casting, but I am talking about, which I think is very important, and vision casting is a part of leadership, and we all have to do that. But I'm not talking about just looking into the future like the optimist in the story said, oh, we're going to be out by December, and he wasn't, and they died of a broken heart. No, I'm talking about looking at the reality and saying, okay, this is what we were doing. Now we find ourselves in this reality. The solution is for us to do these kinds of things. And so here are the things that we're doing towards that solution. And meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, communicating those in and throughout your team, and getting your leaders to do this, to communicate in the same way. And as you do that, you focus not on the problem that exists, but you focus on the solution and the drivers of that solution, the tasks that lead towards that solution, the elements of today's activity that move you in that direction. And that's one of the most, and that's such a foundational principle, a foundational practice for getting through and navigating challenging moments in our economies, in our, whether it's our personal family economy in our homes, or whether it's our economy in our business, or the global economy, not global, but the national economy in the United States. It could be navigating any of those types of things. And so any of those instances. And so I just want you to realize that addressing reality is important, and focusing on the solution. And you, as the leader, your job is, this is where you shine. This is where leadership shines. And this is why you get paid most of your money as the leader. This is why you you hold your position, is because during this time you are required. I say it's required because I really feel like it's a responsibility, how you serve your team, how you are put in this position to serve your team incredibly well. So you're required to find, to identify the things that you're doing that are moving towards the solution, and highlight those, draw them out, and point your teams and your families' mind in that direction, continually, day after day after day, until that solution driven activity brings the outcome that you're after. And that might change, and the activity that you're working on might change daily, because you start focusing on the solution and you're doing this and this, that's leading towards the solution, and then you get results that say, okay, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, this kind of worked actually, and these two things are really work, they actually really worked. Okay, so now we understand that we don't need to focus on those three things that didn't work. We need to put all our efforts on the things that are amplifying that solution that we're after, and just focus all our efforts on there and just get after it. When all you really want to do is just kind of shrivel up and just be silent and disappear. Your true purpose in this moment is learning to look at the solution and show everybody else the solution, and that there is a light ahead, and to continue broadcasting that as loudly and as often as possible, not without addressing the facts. We already talked about that, but in a way that is productively, and focusing yourself, your family, and your team on taking more action on what you can control, because we can only control our controllables. We can only control what's happening in our life, what we are doing, what our person and our team, and we can only control us. We can't control everything else. And that is vital to leading your team through a tumultuous time. And that's what I want to encourage you as leaders out there, or just leaders in your home, a husband or wife in your home, maybe going through the Doge cutoffs. You may be going through the reduction in size of your team. You may now have more work on your plate, or more work than you know that your team is going to be able to do, because you don't have enough people to do all the work anymore, because you needed those people, and somebody else decided you didn't, and now you find yourself in this situation and you can't control it. And that's where we as leaders shine. That's why we have been given our position, so that in those moments we look towards the solution and start aligning our team in that direction. All right, so these are two big things, and I know, and I'd like you to drop comments below in the chat, and send me messages as to what is not clear, or maybe what you'd like me to further clarify, because around this issue and kind of crisis management, uh, it's something that every leader will face, and no one's good at. You do not go into business because you want to deal with crisis management. I mean, that is the furthest thing from your mind. You're like, I want to go into business because I want to create a legacy for my family, or I want to get really wealthy, or I want to create this kind of really cool outcomes, and I want to be a leader, and I want to be a team, and all this great cool stuff. And nobody realizes that part of owning and operating your business is going to be dealing with some of the deepest crises that you will ever experience in your lifetime. And so nothing prepares you for that until you're in it and working through it. And that's why I'm hoping that this video helps somebody out there as you go through this tumultuous moment in history in the American economy. The third thing that I want to hand you is while we're addressing reality, we're using solution driven focus. The third thing is, and I think, and I don't know why, that this one, it's like it's one of those tactical things that it's just there, and it has tentacles into every area of our life. But being the financial stability factor of planning for such events. For example, whenever you're operating your organization and things are going well, and you don't really think about the fact that, okay, it could all just change in a moment, and one election cycle can completely radically change everything, and you could now be going through a challenging, or a crisis management scenario. And setting up your organization for financial stability and success to transcend that period is what you're supposed to do in the good times, and in the medium times, and the times when things are a little bit tight, but you're making it. And that is supposed to happen constantly through all of those times, so that when you get to the crisis time, you're like, okay, we got some cash, we don't have any debt, we are kind of okay, and we can do this for a few months while we work through this. Because in any 10-year period in your business, you will without question, enter into a crisis management situation in the economy, in your personal life, or in your business for whatever reason. Your grandmother said, save for a rainy day. At least my grandmother did. She said, save for a rainy day. And she was like, rainy days are coming, whether or not you're planning for it or ready, they're going to come. So might as well save for them because they're coming anyways. It's part of life. And so I want to just, because that makes its way into every area of our life, and it's impacted by sales, it's impacted by all the revenue flows, and you have to set that up as hard as it is during the good times and the mediocre times. You have to set the system up where you have a philosophy on what you're doing to make sure that when you hit those crisis management times, you have an emergency fund or retained earnings. So it's about cutting some of the profit from every single piece of money that comes into your business and putting it in a separate account and saying, okay, this is allocated for that moment of crisis or that challenge that we're going to face, or an incredible opportunity that we have that we normally wouldn't have the money for. And so we set aside a portion of our money that comes in every single month into a retained earnings fund, so that when we work through situations like we're facing right now, we had that ready and available to us. And so many companies don't have that. I remember I was talking to one business owner. It was the owner of a survey company, a land survey company. And it's like, man, every month I find myself having to use $10,000 to $15,000 in credit and debt, sorry, to cover the salaries for all my team. And I said to myself, why don't you just stop being dumb? This is him talking to himself. Why don't you just stop being dumb? And why don't you instead save up $10,000 to $15,000 and put it in an account, so that each month you can just use your own money to make sure that you're keeping your business afloat. And then beyond that, work to save more so that you actually have a few months of that saved, so that in the event something happens, you can just deal with it yourself instead of having to go to the bank and get the money from there. And he was like, man, so I just told myself, okay, save the money and use your own money for operating your business. Now, I know a lot of people have the philosophy that you should use other people's money or use the bank's money. And it's just not something that I adhere to, that I believe, because uh, I'll say this: a person with an experience is not at the mercy of a person with an opinion. And my experience has been that every single time that I've gone through a downturn in my life, negative turn in the economy, challenging personal issues, relationship challenge or problem, it's been the fact, one of the pillars for me being able to make it through has been that I never used debt, that I never ever depended on debt to help us get through. So guys, I hope these three things are helpful for you. And if you need more clarity or insight around any of these, please drop them in the comments below and I will answer those questions or just discuss them with you, or I'll make follow-up videos about that subject to help you with it. Because here in this channel, I help leaders. We help businesses grow. We deal with the challenges of today in leadership and help people create a better tomorrow. So please like and subscribe to this video, share it with somebody who you think may need it, and let's go forward working through all of life's crisis management situations together and with great success.